where the growth has come from, Christy, has really been the expansion of our training and education programs. So back in the 80s, we started to go around the country doing what we called a traditional, like 3-hour workshop educational program to teach people about industry standards, basics of installation, new products, new technology that was entering the market. And that program was widely popular and has grown from, we had one full-time employee that was running that program when I got here in 2002. We had one vehicle at that time. And now we do, I believe in 2025, we will do 400 plus events and 80 full day events, regional training programs, full day programs, and 10 2-day programs.
I think it was really our goal to make people feel comfortable. These are not small, simple. There's a cost investment to this, right? And it's a work of art, really, is the way we see it. So I think eliminating any of the, like, it shows up on site and even, God forbid, gets installed and the client's like, ooh, we didn't want that. And we knew that from the jump that was like, okay, we really need to hone this process and get it so that everyone's happy, right? So, I mean, some of it's been kind of tweaked here and there, but that was sort of something from the beginning that we decided we needed a really clean, clear-cut way of doing custom work where everyone feels good about it. And that's just worked for us. So
that's wonderful.
My goal for every project is that when we're done, that client has the best pool in the world that day. I mean, I take it very seriously, the projects that we are awarded, and the installation, the creation of that piece of art is something that's really important to me. Of course, there are some that are bigger or a lot bigger than others, but that doesn't mean that they're better to me.
I grew up with mosaics in my childhood home. My dad did mosaics as a hobby in college at the insistence of a roommate. And he enjoyed it, but he never followed that path. He taught chemistry and physics, but he loved mosaics as just a hobby. And his first mosaic was a table that was inspired by an American Scientific front cover. That was a magazine. Leave it to the scientists to, bring that into his art. And I was always intrigued. And at one point, that table was in my childhood bedroom. And I can just remember looking at it and marveling at the colors and, what were these squares made of and what was the material behind or between the actual colored squares.
Wow, I didn't know this existed. How much do I need? Where do I get it? And then how much does it cost? If cost is number one, they're probably not an epoxy customer. So they're really not our customer. But all of that aside, it solves all the problems and gives you a nice fashion.
It's so true. I mean, it's exciting. It's almost like, I wouldn't say bringing sexy back, but you're instilling sexy into the tile industry with this type of a grout, right? That has all of these attributes.
I have been wanting to use the gold grout since I saw it. But you can't use gold grout with everything.
True.
You can't. This client that I worked with, she was like, do whatever you want. Just do it. I trust you. You do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. Like, I showed her the black tile, and I was like, I'm going to do some gold grout. So I trust you. And I was like, heck yeah. So I got to do it. And it ended up, it really popped.
It's a little bit about what you do.
Well, it was a complete accident. I always did carpentry out of high school. And in high school, I did a lot of pottery, a lot of art classes. And I got a kiln right out of high school. And I had the opportunity to make some tiles for a friend. And made some tiles for a friend's entryway and stair risers. And that was kind of the first thing I did, and the light went off in my head and was like, oh, I can probably do something with this. So I originally went into it wanting to do handmade tile. And at one time I had like 4 kilns and I had a whole ceramic studio, and I was making tile, but it was a lot harder to sell handmade mosaics than it was to start doing hand cut mosaics.
Yeah, no, for sure. Installation is the single most talked about issue in flooring, really, but certainly in tile. As I said, the industry really prides itself in durability. Consumers have come to expect durable, quality products. A tile floor, a tile surface is really an investment, and to realize, that investment to its potential, it needs to be done the right way. And that's why we're so focused on good installation standards, qualified labor, and all of the things that come into a successful tile installation.
And oftentimes, unfortunately, some of the leaks that we see are out of the installer's control. For example, we've seen a vinyl liner on a mud bed get stepped on by somebody, and there's a nail on the liner, and then the nail punctures the thing from the boot and the compression, and it's toast.
You might not see that, like, as the person who's doing the job, right? You may
Right.
not be able to know that happened, for example.
That's right. Yep. And something like that might still pass the flood test, or it happens after the flood test. I mean, there's so many variables on a job site that we prefer to take those variables out of the equation and provide folks with something that's going to just perform 100% all the time.
Bunch of other people working for you. There's just no way.
Right. And then it kind of gets away from that, which, because you are the artist, you're creating this, and you have to oversee it. You can't just like delegate that aspect, I imagine.
Touch every single tile in my projects.
Wow.
Every one, from start to finish.
Speaking of that, you had mentioned, or I saw that you prefer glass. Like, why is that? And what else is there? I mean, other than ceramic, what else is there to use? Stone?
Doing a lot of pools, glass is the most durable, and it's completely waterproofing. The colors, the range of colors is obviously much bigger than stones, but it's really the durability, the way that you can cut it. It cuts easily compared to stones and more precisely. And again, the range of colors that you can get.
It can drive you to produce really good things, and it can drive you to work really hard, but also you could be left with a sense of worthlessness if you're not producing those things. And so my struggle was finding a sense of value, but then the tile trade kind of gave that to me. And then it just kind of took off from there. I got clean and sober in 2002. And
That's great.
Yeah, went to an inpatient rehab. And then when I came out, I just had a whole new, I had a spiritual experience in that rehab. And when I came out, I just had a whole new view of life.
Wow.
Whole new set of values. And so that really kind of kicked us off. And there was this synchronicity of stuff that just happened.
So we do trade shows, we do a lot of social media, and then the podcast. And we're, like I said, we're creating a commercial that will blast all over our social media accounts to bring awareness to our service. And as an installer, you have nothing to lose. You just get a profile, and you're able to utilize that profile to separate yourself from, we call it separating oil and water. That's kind of the first thing you need to do in our industry to reduce claims, improve customer satisfaction, all of these things that we care about. So, we got a multifaceted kind of crazy approach, but, I'm no marketing expert. We have a marketing person on staff, and I often go down a rabbit hole of what I want to see happen. We're just trying to get the awareness up. So
I understand. Absolutely. It's very interesting how, what sometimes can just catch. I mean, you think about completely in left field, but you think about like a, local company here in Georgia called Chick-fil-A. And they've used the same campaign for years. Eat more chicken.
Eat more chicken. Yeah. I see chicken in your future.
Say the name of your company. I'm just curious.
Believe it or not, it doesn't have to do anything with tiles. Marcatia, it means, a spot for Alpine guys. When you go in the Alps, you see the red dot. So it doesn't have to do anything with a mosaic. As you can see, I don't know, the power of social media is strong, but I'm not really involved as I have a lot of work to do. So probably in some next period, probably I'll find someone who will do it for me. We don't have even a web page, anything, because we are wholesale. We are not a retail. So we work mostly with architects, specialized companies that are doing pools, installers, large, let's say, hotels.
That comes as a shock to some folks who just have never heard of our product or our company, but we've been around for quite a long time. For a long time, our business has done a lot of work in do-it-yourself type of projects, right? So it speaks on one hand that our product is so easy that do-it-yourself person could put it in. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we've done a ton of business in the commercial world, so multifamily and hospitality projects and things like that. And so that really speaks to the simplicity and speed of install that, you could do a project that's 250 rooms and it just goes very quickly, and they're just putting it in one after another. And so that's kind of how our business has grown up over the years. I'd say, maybe 5 to 6 years ago, the previous leadership really started expanding presence and going to trade shows and trying to get the word out about what we do and who we are. And that story and message has really just only continued to accelerate as you noted. Our presence on YouTube and the number of videos that are out there increasing. And so we're really starting to get a lot of traction with small pros and contractors, as well as single family home builders, custom builders doing all sorts of stuff.
This environment demanded primarily helicopter operations in more remote places. There were airports that were open and their fixed wing operations were deploying from a different base into those. So both were going simultaneously. But the Hickory rotary wing base was a huge piece of the puzzle.
And then certainly once we had something to bring to the table in these conversations, the industry started to gain relevance and got ahead of the curve with other efforts such as environmental product declarations, where we basically did an industry-wide study of what is the environmental impact of tile, of grout, published those in the form of environmental product declarations, EPDs. Shortly thereafter, and just a few short years ago, we released a similar version, but it's called a material ingredient guide, to where we released a report of all the ingredients and what the health ramifications are of those ingredients.
That is so interesting.
And now today, the big issue is carbon, lower embodied carbon. What are we doing as an industry to develop standards to calculate our carbon footprint? So we're definitely very much deep in those conversations with the right players.
What do you think in that time frame of, kind of coming into where they were asking you, how about you guys, what kind of footprint are you leaving and what are you doing? What was some of the biggest discoveries you guys found that you were able to make an impact in that regard?
Yeah. So again, going back in time, but the early days, is recycled content important? Are product emissions in the air we breathe, is that important? Is the proximity of the manufacturing to the installation site important? And so on and so on and so on. And the answer was yes, 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 yes.
Because nobody had ever seen that before. And so that was kind of cool that they would, number one, leave us alone. And also it was very obvious the impression that they got was kind of over their head. And that I liked that aspect of it. Also, there wasn't much competition at the time. Not that there's a lot of competition now, especially on the different levels that we're on. But certainly back in the day, 30 years ago, there was nobody doing that specifically.
Whether you make a sculpture in the garden or it just mosaics and the outdoors and mosaics and plants. It's just such a beautiful combination to have the softness of the plants with the hard materials of mosaic. It just, especially if you have like a pop of color in amongst, all this greenery and then life.
Yes.
Life. So, that could be things like a belt buckle or a necklace or a pair of earrings or, a letter opener. So it really, to me, mosaics can hit so many different areas in your life and holidays, and it's universal.
Yeah, you interviewed Bo and Jimmy and I when we were in Italy, and that's one of my favorite things to do is arrive the week before and get in some of these factories and see some of the. I mean, you see a kiln that's 2 football fields long that's now producing so much tile at such a low cost compared to 10 years ago. It's really just phenomenal.
That's exciting because it keeps it vital. And it's so, it's kind of an irony that it's such an ancient ancient, thing that is still vital today. And maybe part of that industry, part of the technological advancements helps that to be so.
Social media that I follow, eTile, HUD Tile, like I geek out on those guys. Like I watch their stuff, and I've learned like on miters and stuff, like how to like cut big format tiles, like just from watching these guys tips and tricks that it made me want to like show a little more. These guys are doing it. Let me try. And so my son does all my social media.
I told you earlier, we're up to 23 employees, but that's 2,000 members. There's a lot of people we need to reach. We created, and we utilize technology for this, but we created a 4-year apprenticeship program, and it was one of the first in the construction industry to be what they now call a hybrid program, which is a combination of on-the-job training, but with an online learning management systems.
Oh yeah, Korean is awesome. Yeah, it's I love working with other designers as well because it's a good team, right? They have a client, they do the design, but can't do anything with it unless there's an installer. So
exactly.
Yeah, so we've formed a really good relationship with Green. We do have a few other designers that we do the same thing with. I think it's a great strategy for tile installers to team up with designers. It's someone who, you have each other's backs in certain situations.
A lot of my clients, they call me back after, a few years or months, and they tell me and they show me a video that they're there in their pool with their family, their friends, they're having a huge celebration or a wedding or whatever. They have, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people because some of these properties are huge. And they share it with me and they tell me, you don't understand how thankful for having you here. Look how beautiful your pool is, and we love it, and we're enjoying. I'm having all these friends that I love, all this family that I love, and they're having fun with what you created for me. That gives me the goosebump.
Wow.
Just thinking about it. It's almost like an addiction. Like when I have motivation, I feel high. It's just beautiful knowing that I created something that's, besides being beautiful, it's also has a big functionality and people are having fun with it. It's awesome.
And like it could last generations, which is another legacy aspect of it too.
Because he got involved with the NTCA and the industry events, it's allowed him to learn basically for free to grow his business. And now he's going to be turning over his business to his son in the future. So that's an example, real life, of how getting involved can really help a tile contractor grow their business.
Wow, that's a huge testimonial. I mean, really, because I think sometimes people don't really get why. It's so key to have a support structure, people to go to, bounce things off of, even when you are like, I don't know, just that you have that opportunity to continue to learn, and that how this person took that information and transformed his company. I mean, that's an incredible testimony.
And I'll take it a step further, Christy. If there's any of your listeners that have that aha moment, that want to talk to a tile contractor that has, risen from the bottom to the top, that they would like to have a one-on-one with, please reach out to me. I will personally link you up to a handful of our members, and maybe there's one in their area that they can reach out, that the member can reach out to, because that's what it's about. It's about helping tile contractors with education and with more business savvy to help grow their business.
Design's kind of what led me to tile, but my real passion was fine art. So it just sort of evolved into I started messing around with ceramics, and I kind of had a vision in my head for what I thought would be fun. And it was just like a little passion project, just something you do when you get home at the end of the day that brings you some joy. That, it led to, I ended up buying a kiln, and, I watched tons of YouTube videos, and I was doing all the research. And so after a while, I started creating some things that were kind of cool. They were like little ceramic, they were starfish or crabs. I did some fish, and I brought them into the shop that I was working at, and they did pretty well. They were different. People liked them.
Operation Airdrop is a limited scope operation. So they've shifted off to an organization called Ground Force, which is a partner. There's a lot of partnerships among the non-government organizations that are charitable disaster relief. They work well hand in hand with each other. And when something exceeds their capability, they reach out. So when we demobbed from the Hilo base, we basically handed off to Ground Force, but Operation Airdrop is still working because of the unique nature of this. They're still trying to keep a hand in it. I have shifted to the Benedict's Foundation for disaster relief, and that's another group that I'm actually sitting in the parking lot of their warehouse right now, where they're collecting and delivering supplies. They're still utilizing fixed wing aircraft. They have a lot of resources, and they will stay at it for a while. It's uncertain what the future looks like, but the groundswell of support will go away at some point, and these organizations are prepared to stay in for much longer. This is going to take a really long time.
It's what they're capable of doing. And so then we built the whole platform around that. It's a whole work order system. We call it an SRM. It's very similar to a CRM. Instead of it being a client relationship management platform, it's a subcontractor relationship management platform. And so you can publish work on the network. We have about 1,000 installers on it, hammer rated, some 0.25 hammer rated and some 5 hammer rated. But in essence, it tells us their skill and ability. You don't need to be a 5 hammer guy to put it in a backsplash, for example. So everybody can work no matter where your hammer rating is. But it also, what I really wanted to do and where my passion is at with Go Carrera is aligning the incentives of the installer with the incentives of the industry.
Well, the one interesting fact, did you know, tile's the only consumer product, or probably the only product that's remained the same price at wholesale since World War II. The price has not changed. Manufacturing efficiencies have allowed the cost to virtually stay the same. Where a loaf of bread might have been a nickel then and it's $2 now, the wholesale price of tile is still the same.
That's incredible. I remember you saying that before, and I was like, how could that be? But you're right. It's all the advancements and all the technology that's gone into the industry. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and how this company came about.
I had been doing tile work for several years, side jobs and working for contractors, tile contractors, like as an installer, journeyman. And I started doing more and more my own projects, and then just eventually started rock solid as a legitimate company in the 80s, and then got licensed and bonded and everything, I think in 1990 or 1991, and have just been full-time since.
Even Italians, Spanish people say, definitely, I think there are like artists. I called one, Leonardo da Vinci, because what he does in the pool is unbelievable. You cannot find even single mistake. That is not possible. For instance, in one pool of 80 square meters, you'll have like 200,000 pieces of mosaic, and not even a single mistake.
Right. And being in distribution, it's kind of you manage things and you lead people is sort of the concept. And so I think that fits well because we do manage a lot of things in distribution. It's not purely the leadership role, but you have to have both sides of the equation. And that was really, I think, a great fit. I had a big learning curve. I was adapting to when you're coming out of a special operations environment and you're working with really high performance individuals that have a high training level, there's a significant shift where the expectations change. You have to provide a lot more training. You have to look at, what people's capabilities are and try to adapt them to roles. But, ultimately, I feel like it worked out pretty well.
I bet. It's that you've been in the industry now for like 34 years, right?
It's been a wonderful industry. I really like the fact that it was really a sustainable product. And I mean, we use that word now, but I grew up in an area where there was a lot of value placed on tile. And, people looked at that for longevity. It was an investment in their home. So I always had that sort of a perspective on the product itself. And I didn't want to be involved in an industry that was going to have a short lifespan.
Is we launched a program in middle of 24, just kind of put it out there fairly quietly and made sure all the kinks were ironed out and all this type of stuff. But it is a program geared specifically at tile contractors and small pros. And so the deal is we offer a discount. We offer some expedited lead times on those custom pans. Because we know, especially in a remodel scenario, timing is everything, and you got to have it when you need it. A couple other sort of nice little perks that we offer as a part of the pro program, and so we want pros to use our stuff and fall in love with it and use it on every project. And so it's really just kind of a loyalty program that we're putting out, and so we're really going to put that out in a major way in 2025 and do some marketing around it. And again, I hope people try it and get to know the product and get to know the brand.
Which is great,
It is. That's how we learn a lot.
Exactly. So fast forward to now, and through all of that, I was making art and I was selling it, and then people would see what I made and they wanted to learn. So I started teaching, I started putting together workshops. And it was during COVID where my son said, "Why don't you start a YouTube channel?" And I was like, "Huh? What do you mean?"
Don't you love that out of the mouth of babes and youth?
Yeah.
They're all entwined and enmeshed in that. They know a lot.
Totally. And it was just the little nudge that I needed.
I don't know if you're aware of Lee and Jane Callowert with Dragonfly Tile, but
I've heard of them.
Yeah, I've teamed up with them and through the NTCA, and over the past few years, I can't remember when we met here, like 2018 or 19. It was after the octopus. Kraken that I did. Anyways, we've teamed up, and now we've started this thing we call ART, Artisan Revolution in Tile, and we're teaching other tile contractors how to do exactly what we're doing. So we put on a 4-day class. It's this will be our third one this year, but it's a 4-day class. We take on 16 people, and we teach them, how to confidently sell a job, design it, fabricate it, pre-mount it and install it all in 4 days. So it's a really intensive class.
That is so cool.
Everything about the organization in the NTCA from Bart, right? Be his right hand, be his left hand when he needs it, and learn everything about the organization. I also help oversee the CTEF as well. And so, over these next however many years, I need to learn everything. That's what I'm doing. So most recently, my responsibilities include heading up the nationally recognized 5-star accredited contractors program,
Mm-hmm.
which is an elite group of residential, commercial, and large commercial contractors throughout the United States. We currently have about 56 5-star contractors, and I'd like to double that number up to 112 over the next 3 years. We currently, and excitingly to say, we have about 69 companies that are already interested in 5-star just in the short time I've been involved. And I really credit my partner in crime, Becky Serbin, who's our director of education and curriculum within the NTCA. She's our administrative arm for 5-star. So her and I have really done a great job over the last 6 months to gain more interest in 5-star. And I also now am overseeing all of the training team. So we have about 7 trainers that travel throughout the United States. They're on the road about 32 weeks a year, and they are executing complementary training, and we'll do about 308 educational programs throughout the United States this year. Educational programming that can be a workshop, that could be a 2-hour or 3-hour workshop at a host location, or there could be a 1-day regional training event, or there could be a 2-day regional training event. So I get the pleasure of overseeing 5-star and the entire training team.
Was it a mural or was it something
Well,
else?
no, I
Or
did a lot of restorations. They had a lot of
okay.
ancient mosaics, so I did a lot of restorations and try to bring them back to the original look, and adding new tessera. Tessera is the technical name of a small chip of mosaic. So trying to use the same kind of stone and same kind of colors, the same kind of restoring it to the original beauty, because time damages everything, and we're talking about thousands of years.
Yeah, so 2024 is a huge year for TCNA and the ceramic tile industry and the flooring industry in general. What we did was we realized a few years back that sustainability is complex. It is challenging for the whole supply chain to know which products are sustainable, how to identify those, what industry needs to be doing, what policymakers and standards developers are doing outside of our industry to require us to perform in a certain way from a sustainability standpoint. Kind of surprised that a summit didn't exist, and just an opportunity to get the whole industry together, not just tile, but wood, laminate, vinyl, carpet, stone, and ceramic, all under one roof, alongside other players in the supply chain, users, specifiers, designers, advocacy groups, policymakers, standards development organization. We all face similar sustainability challenges, but we all have very different ways of addressing those challenges and different expectations throughout the supply chains. That was the birth of, let's get together and form a flooring sustainability summit.
Wow.
And this year was the inaugural event. It was co-hosted by TCNA, Tile Council of North America, as well as the National Wood Flooring Association, NWFA, the Natural Stone Institute, as well as the North American Laminate Flooring Association. And we also had participation from vinyl companies, carpet companies, and attendees in the room that could speak to those interests. But it was the inaugural event, and the whole goal was to exchange dialogue and work and be on the same page with the right people to make the right decisions, so that we could mitigate confusion in the marketplace. And the event was a smashing success.
And we became the 90th country selling Lidocol, and they're best known for their environmentally friendly, easy to use, but very fashion forward grouting product. No pesticides in it, no VOCs. It's all what they call zero risk products. It's the only epoxy that's non-hazardous. And right now, if you just Google epoxy tile grout, I hope everybody watching this does, we come up number 1 and number 2 on Google for that search term, because we're the only non-hazardous epoxy, so we can ship anything.
That's quite a claim to fame. The only non-hazardous epoxy that's also easy to use, but also has a lot of different colors to choose from, which seems like that's pretty unique as well.
So basically, a lot of the videos and courses are there to be taken and watched on your computer. And then you go from the computer into the classroom with other people, or into the field with your mentor or trainer. And it's really meant to be on-the-job training, some classroom training, as well as some computer training and watching. And it's a 4-year program approved by the Department of Labor.
Like you got Portia Carrera, so it kind of aligns, and Carrera Marble, even though it's spelled differently, it just aligns with a higher quality. But Carrera means career in Spanish as well. So kind of like go career, get your career moving forward.
Yes.
You know, ignite your career. We like to say awaken the trade. You know, get excited about your craft. Be a professional on it.
Go on.
Get a high hammer rating and go knock it out of the park. And we're given the mechanism for anybody to have a free profile on our network and really set yourself apart, market yourself separately.
I can just see though why that aspect of just becoming, you know, just the perfecting of the craft as you go along, and then also just being so gratified and satisfied after you do something that's that work of art. It's like you just did this, you know, that's your work, you know.
When you get done with doing, you know, I get done doing a shower or a floor for a client, and they get to come in and they see your work and they appreciate it. Like that's like, you know, that's my tip. You know, like, oh, thank you. You know, I did that. You know, and I enjoy working for people who are middle class, more than wealthy people, because they really appreciate it. You know what I mean? When you go in and you build their shower that they've seen on Pinterest, you know, they're like, oh my God.
We live on Homer is on Ketchimack Bay, and we look across at 3 glaciers and mountains right across the bay from us. So I do a lot of mountains. I do a lot of nature stuff because that's what people like up here. But my bread and butter is kind of mountains, and you know, I've done a lot of fireplaces, a lot of showers. Working on one now. I'm doing a steam shower right now with a mountain scene and 2 breaching humpback whales in the foreground.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's funny. It's the year of the mountains for me. I just finished a mountain piece before this one with 10 different varieties of Alaska wildflowers in the foreground.
That if you don't know about the National Tile Contractors Association, reach out, right? Reach out to me. I'm happy to help. We want to embrace the tile contractor, embrace the industry. If you're a manufacturer distributor and you're facing challenges, reach out. Right? I'd love to try and help you see how the NTCA can maybe we can hold some educational events at your locations next year. We're already, it's March, right? It's not even the end of Q1. We're starting to work on the calendar for next year already. So you know, if you want to be more involved, please reach out. There's no question is a dumb question. I'm happy to help anybody anywhere I can.
Awesome. That sounds great. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you is for 2025, given your new role and everything, how do you see that you're going to up your tile game? What would you say is like 1 or 2 things that you feel like is on the docket?
Well, you know, it's a little cliche to say, right? But God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I always try to listen a lot more than I like to talk. And it's a little uncomfortable because I like listening. I actually want to interview you, Christy, right? But so I want to up my game in continuing to listen to our members, listen to the manufacturers that we support and distributors that we support, and that support us too, right? And see what can we do better from an educational standpoint. How can we up our game in educating the industry and educating the tile contractors? So that's number 1. I'd like to listen, and then number 2, I'd like to up my game. You know, again, from our staff, right? And learning their roles. That's part of my job, you know, as onboarding is learning their roles. How can I help them be a better employee? How can I make sure and ensure that they love coming to work and really being a better teammate for the team? So those are the 2 ways that I want to up my game this year.
Awesome.
99.9% of the time, it's all about these green chemistries, and the flooring industry is getting more in tune to that. You know, there's a flooring sustainability summit we had this year, hosted by TCNA's Bill Greasy.
Mm-hmm.
I know you interviewed him. And our focus is on how we're sustainable. And certainly tile is, but a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, almost every time overlooked is how unsustainable some of the installation products are.
Yeah.
That's where these Lidocol products came from, a result of a European Union funded project called Project Zero, which stood for Zero Environmental Risks in Our Building. The EU actually paid for this to lower the TOX classification and safety risks for installers down to zero for all of these flooring products.
Used to be, it was, in our mindset that this was kind of a guy's industry, but the reality is there have been women in design, women in architectural components, and certainly women in the distribution side selling to the builders and working in our showrooms for many, many years. But we never really saw a lot of women installers. But we also had a lot of husband and wife businesses where the husband, traditionally, the husband was out setting tile, running the crews, and his wife was working with the builder's clients, the consumers, making selections, ordering the product, doing the books, doing all the invoicing, and that still exists. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of women in the tile industry, and we want more women in the tile industry. And in particular, we want more women installers, and we want to celebrate them